Some of you may recognise this lovely woman. You've seen her in previous videos where we've talked about pornography.
Oh, please.
And anxiety.
Now you know people are going to go back and look for that pornography one.
It was a good one. Just louder. Moving swiftly on. It was back in 2017, I think, when we first spoke about your dad and him committing suicide, and that was for...
Should it not be taking his own life? I mean, I still use committing suicide, but some people don't like it.
No, I think you're right, taking his own life, took his own life, and that was for a university project, and that was the first and only time that we've really sat down and properly spoke about it. And I think, given that I've had more time to talk with other people and just kind of go through like my own little mental health struggles, that, I don't know, it just felt like appropriate to kind of sit down with you again and just like talk about it. And I know, because how old were you when your dad took his own life?
27, 1988.
And I know,
yes, I'm old.
And I know that we've had conversations here and there where you've said that it's taken even up until, you know, the age of 50.
Oh yeah, to come to terms
with it and to understand that, you know,
and to be
I
able...
can tell people that he took his own life, because you said you would initially just tell people that
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, what would you say to people?
I would just say that he'd been ill, because he had had a brain injury and he'd had a few brain operations, and, you know, after that he was never the same. But we didn't really know that because he wouldn't tell anybody. As far as everybody knew, he was recovering well, etc., etc. And it was a couple of years before, in between, you know, we had the brain injury, and then he took his own life. So it wasn't immediately. But back then, nobody spoke about suicide. Nobody would, you know, I just wouldn't tell anybody. I was embarrassed. I felt ashamed. There was that huge stigma attached to it. So I just said to everybody that he'd had a bleed on the brain. And it wasn't until I was in my 50s that I came to terms with it, and I could actually speak to people. And if somebody, you know, asked me how he died, I would say he took his own life. And I still felt a little bit embarrassed, but it was nowhere near as bad. Even the family didn't speak about it. And now that a lot of the family have also passed on, I've now got nobody that I can go back to and really speak about it. Why? Did you know how he was feeling? What could have brought it on? Because I lived away at the time and I didn't see him every day, although I spoke to him most days. I've now got no reference points, so yeah, it just completely changes the way that you look at life. There's no going back from that kind of experience, in my opinion.
And like, what's that grief process like when something like that occurs, where it's totally unexpected, but it's also something that you can't talk about because it's taboo?
Well, I mean, it was horrific for me because on the night before I got the news, in the early hours of the morning, my telephone rang, and my phone was down on the bottom floor. I lived on the second floor. I had a 3-story house at the time. And I thought, oh, you know, whoever it is, they'll leave me a message. Back in those days, you had answer machines. And I thought, I'll pick it up in the morning. Anyway, he didn't leave a message. I don't even know if it was my dad, but I'm convinced that it was. And I'm convinced that he wanted to speak to me. So, you know, I beat myself up. Perhaps if I'd have, you know, made the effort, went downstairs, picked up the phone, we could have had a conversation. It may have changed how he was feeling. I'll never know, but that will never leave me. That will just never leave me. It's, you know, you do feel guilt. But yeah, it's just something that I will never get over that. I should have answered the phone, and who knows, life could have been different. But for me, I mean, it changes all of your relationships with people, because, I mean, you know, like arguments that you might have, you don't want it to escalate into anything, because then I always think, my God, if they do anything stupid.
Well, I know you've said to me a few times when I've had conversations with you about my dad and being like, I'm struggling with our relationship, like a part of me just thinks like I just need to cut him off, and you've said things like, look, but like if he wasn't here tomorrow, or if he just suddenly died, like how would you feel?
Yeah.
Like, would you be upset? And I suppose to a point, like I would. And I think when you kind of pose it like that, like sometimes like it's enough to kind of be like, okay, well, there's actually something still,
do you know what,
worth holding on to.
life is so fragile. People are fragile under the right circumstances. Even the strongest of people, under the right circumstances, all of that will just go when they feel as though they have no alternative. And that's the reality of it. I mean, and it doesn't always have to be suicide. It can just be like my mother went to bed perfectly healthy, aged 61, didn't wake up. So it's not just suicide. Why you should think about your relationships and not do anything too hasty. But with suicide, there's so many unanswered questions that you will never really get closure on unless that person has spoken with you or left a note or whatever. You'll never get closure. And I think that that's the most difficult thing that I found, was that, you know, it was like, why?
Well, I suppose in moments like that, it's like how I see anxiety, where you worry about something, and when the information isn't there to bridge the gap, you create your own reasons, or you kind of start to think, oh well, was it because of this, or is it that? And I suppose it's a little bit like that, the lack of closure, that you've kind of got this gap which you need to kind of like bridge, and your mind tries to understand where it will never understand.
I don't think the brain and the mind and a person's thought process we can ever understand, really. We're all wired differently. We see the world differently. I think for me, I mean, with your anxiety, for example, had I not been exposed to suicide, I don't think, even with your anxiety, you know, kind of like when you've been, you know, in a bad place, we've had the suicide chat. Now, you're not going to do anything stupid, you know. And I don't think, had I not been exposed to that I would have even thought about saying to you, now you're not going to do something stupid. But
I mean, even outside of anxiety, if you've not heard from me for about like 3 days,
I know,
you'll ring and be like, well, you might have been dead. I thought you could have been dead. I've not heard from you. You've not responded to me text. You might have been in a ditch.
I have to. I always remember, even when you lot were kids, if we'd had an argument or whatever, I would always make sure that when you went to bed you were okay. I'd even listen at the door to make sure that you were that you were breathing. I mean, I know that sounds extreme, but that's how it changes people. It's ridiculous.
But to be fair though, like I do know, particularly from like the mental aspect, and again, you know this more recently, like when I was having like suicidal thoughts, like how quickly like you can be overcome with like
Oh my
fear
God, yeah.
and like,
And you can't
because
explain it.
because it's funny, because I literally went from, and I remember saying this like in the months prior to having suicidal thoughts, that I was like, I've got everything under control, like I know myself so well, I've done so much self-reflection, like I know what makes me feel good, I've got my walks, gym, I can talk to people, I do like my podcast, all of this. And then just one day, like, just something occurs in your life that all of a sudden you can't cope with, and it takes you by absolute surprise. And just that spiral downwards that you can go on can happen so quickly. And I often think that if I wasn't as open as I was in being able to express how I'm feeling and feel comfortable enough to speak to you,
Yeah.
move back home, ring the crisis team, like I generally wonder
What
if I'd
would
still
have
be here.
happened?
And I do
Exactly.
think back to people like your dad, where living in a time where it was very taboo to talk about suicide, to actually sit with those thoughts and be on your own. Like I can't imagine how
And also
awful and isolating and frightening it must be to kind of have to sit in your own head knowing that something's not right, but it's also something that you're really struggling to control, because there's nothing you can control, but having to just surrender and give up this
if
notion of
those
control.
thoughts and feelings are there, they're not all of a sudden going to be made better by you can't get yourself back from how you're feeling into a happy place like that. It takes a while, but back as far as my father's concerned, because he had that bleed on the brain, he then couldn't work. I don't feel that, on reflection, that he felt manly. And it was all about, back in the day, how men should have been. They were the providers, etc., etc. Obviously, every single day I just wish that my father was able to open up, because do you know what? Tomorrow's another day, and I know that there are people obviously who have long-term mental health issues, and I get that, because yours comes and goes. It's not just I'll be better tomorrow. So I get that and I understand that. But for people who are having shit in their lives at the minute, life can be shit. And sometimes we've got to accept that, it's just part of it's just part of life. We do know, however, that the mental health service in this country needs
a kick up the arse.
oh my God, just so much money pumping into it, because young people are really struggling as well. I mean, I just know of older people, all of my children have struggled from
and that's not a reflection of you.
Well, you do ask yourself. But so I know, how hard it can be. And, again, I've been fortunate that I've been able to pay for private consultations when I've needed to. But not a lot of people are fortunate enough to be able to do that. So there's just so much that needs doing for mental health services in this country, because, it is an epidemic. It is an absolute epidemic. And Oh, pardon
My
me.
arse is so sore.
Oh, is
Yours
it?
all right?
No, mine's...
No? Wait, you must have more padding than me. Not in a bad way.
I think that was definitely in a bad way.
People want big bums these days.
Well, I don't, thank you. Well, maybe if I was 30 years younger. Anyway.
I think also within the topic of like mental health and suicide and when things do get bad, I think even within that, there are, on reflection, when you do look back and you do talk about it, there are loads of like ridiculous and funny moments to like reflect on and think about. And I know the first one that comes to mind was prior to when I was having suicidal thoughts, but it was in lockdown when I was really bad and we were going out on walks around the rising sun and stomping around and I was climate anxious and things like that. And I think it was like one day, like I was just really bad and we came back and like we were sitting in the living room and I can tell, because there's like moments with me which I think you see where like I act out of character or something's not right, and that gives you like
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
So there was this one moment where I'm like coming in, I'm like a shell of myself, I'm little bowl of tomato soup, and went to sit down. I don't know how I done it. Spilled all the tomato soup over myself, on this all over the sofa. And any other day,
It didn't matter though, did it?
Any other day, you'd have been like, "What the bloody hell? How have you done that?" Like kicked off World War III.
I wouldn't have kicked off.
But this time, you were like, right, okay.
Don't worry,
panic, you're
it's
okay,
fine.
it's fine. We're gonna just take that off, and if you just stand up, and we'll get the suit off you. Like, it was so funny. But I remember just sitting there, just being like, right, and like done, like just totally, like no emotion.
Just wipe me down.
Yeah, wipe me, like my thighs were burning from the soup, but I was just like, whatever. Like, yeah, like,
You've got to try and see the funny bits, because
then,
there are, you know, like...
And then there was that other time where, that big day, where it was like walking around Tynemouth, going to the beach.
Oh, was that New Year's Eve?
No, I think this was a little bit after.
Was that when we had the dog situation?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it was when, I think we were coming back and we were struggling to...
We were looking for a chemist, weren't we, for medication?
Like medication, like because propanolol I was advised to try and get, and you know GPs were shut because it was in that period after like Christmas and New Year, and chemists were closed. Like we had to go to, we were ringing around like on emergency helplines, like we need something, like you're spiraling out, like I'm worried about.
Sadie, do you know any drug dealers?
And then we end up getting propanolol and like, you know, going back to the house, and I was again a similar moment. I was just totally like drained. I was done, like, and we get back, and then our dog Sid, who's now dead, R.I.P.
Bless him. And a big dog as well.
He comes like bounding over, all excited and like...
No, he came running down the stairs, didn't he?
Down the stairs.
Slipped in the corridor, spread-eagled out on all
legs
fours.
Legs splayed out. He starts
squealing,
yelping and screaming. My mum then thinks, oh my God, like...
The dog's dead.
The dog's dying, like his hips are out of place, like... then like, oh, like... I think because I was just so done with the world at that point, that I just had the level of calmness to be like, right, we'll get a towel, put it under him, lift him up, because you were struggling to figure out how to lift him off the floor. We couldn't
pick him up, he was yelping, and then the phone went.
You're on the floor with him like this, like, my boy, but I'm like borderline suicidal. But you're then on the floor with the dog, like, my boy, and I'm like, hello. Like,
Yes, do you know that I'm on the floor myself?
I'm like struggling mentally, and you're on the floor with the dog, like, oh my God, are you okay?
And the thing is as well, while I was doing that, I knew that that was how you would have been feeling, right? Obviously you care more for the dog than me, but I was trying to play how you were feeling down so as not to get you even more up a height. We did manage to get Sid up off the floor, but it's just like, yeah, there are moments like that where you've got to try and find the humour. And you've been on the medication journey as well, which did also help. So you would recommend people, and not everybody wants to have medication.
Well, but I never wanted to have medication until I got to a point where I recognised that I was going to struggle bringing myself down from a horrible place without further help. And I've always been one where, like, you know, like, I want to do things holistically, I want to do it off my own, like, merit, and I want to, you know, like, and that's just like a personal preference. But I think sometimes it does come a point where it's like, if you need that external help, get it, because it absolutely helped me. And I don't think, you know, and I do think sometimes, like, had I not taken it, like, could I have even got through it? Because I think I just felt like I got to a place where I was just, you know, I was just struggling to, like, calm my nervous system down enough to connect my body and my brain back to a place where I could, you know, see straight again.
Just see the wood for the trees.
Everything was just so out of disconnect that I was just like, I don't know how I can piece myself back together without some external help, which was, you know, being back on, getting put on surgery.
But I think also...
But, like, everything was just so out of disconnect that I was just like, I don't know how I can piece myself back together without some external help, which was, you know, being back on, getting put on surgery.
But I think also, you know, how many people have been saved by opening up, by talking about it, you know, I mean, all of the different groups and, you know, such as Andy's Man Club. There's a lot of different groups like that are there to help men and women come to terms with how they're feeling, open up, because back in the day, back in the, you know, 60s, 70s, 80s, that just was not available. And people, myself included, you know, when this first happened to us, it was kind of like, how could he do it? How could he have done that? How, knowing how he would leave us all feeling, you know, it's selfish, etc., etc. But then...
I only did that because I know fine well, if you watch this back and you had a big kink in your head, you'd be like, why have you let me sit like that?
But then you realise that this isn't being selfish. This is because people are in the depths of despair. They don't see any way out. Yes, they know that people love them, but they feel that those people would be better off without them. And that's the awful thing, you know, because we're not better off without them.
And also, I think for me though, it wasn't so much that, like, oh, I think people would be better off, but it was kind of like, in my head, it was like, I'm going through so much
pain,
a rough spot and so much pain that it was like, you just want that shortcut to, like,
to
get
stop
over
it,
to just
to
stop
end it.
And it does feel like so, and even though it's not physical, like, just like that mental, enduring doom that just doesn't fade and doesn't go, like, you just want it to stop, and, like, it is just like an easy way out, but it's like a short-term solution to a long-term problem.
Absolutely. And, you know, people would rather you be a burden
absolutely,
and look after you and have these things that, you know, we had.
And also, like,
and I remember also just another funny thing, when that day when I was dropping you off back down at home. You'd been staying with me, and you then decided that you wanted to go for a walk. Well, I'd put the worst shoes on to drop you off.
Oh yeah, you had like your Tods on or something, and you were like,
and they were too tight.
Went on like a long 10-kilometre
oh
walk or
my
something around
God,
Tyne
my
House.
feet were bleeding by the time I could hardly walk, if you remember.
But the thing is, that goes on to what I was going to say there. Like, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I do think you do put in so much. You give up so much when me, Ash, Sadie, whatever are going through it. Like, you are like there, like without question.
No,
like
but
no. But and I know it's like you're going to say it's a parent thing.
Of course.
But like
I know that there are some
but it is that
parents
thing
who...
though. Like it's that level of like support, which I think is quite incredible. Where it's like 3 a.m. if I wake up and I'm like freaking out, I can wake you up and you'd be like, right, let's chat. Like.
Do you want to go for a walk?
I think I need like let go on a walk, and you'll come out in like really shitty shoes, blistered feet, but like you'll still be listening to me waffle on about what it is I'm going through, whilst at the same time physically disabling yourself because your feet are on fire and blistering. And like, you know, even just like when I am getting better, just like the calls each day, even after the fact, just each day be like, how are you feeling? How's your mental health? What's, oh great. And then the next day, I'm fine, I'm good, honestly I'm good, but I'm just checking in, like, but like that is
You're not
just
going to
like,
do anything stupid, are you?
But like that's like, you know, incredible. And I often do say to people like, God, like if you weren't here, like, yes, I've got friends who I can kind of speak to, but like, I don't think there's anybody like a parent or like you who you can actively be like, oh no, I will wake you up at 4 a.m. if I'm spiraling out, or I will ask you, like if you were in work and I was like, I'm freaking out, I know fine well you'd just drop whatever you're doing in work and come for a walk.
But there are, the majority of parents would do the same. Yes, we know that there are, you know, other parents that struggle with stuff like that, but that's just what a parent would do.
But do you ever feel like have you ever like missed out on that support, or do you feel like you've ever had that support?
Do you know what, like it's a difficult one, because of course I've struggled over the years, of course everybody does. I suppose I'm lucky that I'm quite, I've got a lot of strength or resilience I suppose, and I've been through a lot of stuff from a young age, so it builds that resilience. And I think kids need to also build resilience, mind, as well, because I think everything being so available and, you know, kind of wrapping them up in cotton wool, etc. You know, kids have to build resilience to know that life isn't easy, it's hard. It's bloody awful at times, and I've had my fair share, but you know, I've just kind of worked through it. I've spoken to people that I've known that I could speak to. Usually you lot, to be honest with you, but when I was younger, no, you know, I would probably just lie on my bed and have a cry or whatever, but then think, right, come on, get on with it. And that's what a lot of people do, you know, but equally a lot of people can't do that because they haven't got the resources to do that, because we're all different, we're all wired differently. Some of us can, some of us can't, and that's why all of these clubs and different people and therapists and coaches exist to help those people that need that extra. And why you set up WoeMan as well, which is brilliant. I'm really proud of you for doing that.
Still speaking about you though, I even do remember having a conversation with you, and I think it was back in lockdown where, again, I'm spiralling out, like, you know, everything needs to be clean. I remember you coming back from work and I've got like the marigolds on my arms, and you coming in with like the shopping or something, and I'm like, right, get your hands washed. I'm like spraying down the tabletops and all of this. And you're like,
that was nuts.
And you're like, Alex, you need to calm down. And I'm like, we're going through a pandemic, like, we can't calm down, like, come on, be clean, wash your hands, and then I think we had a conversation after. I was like, how are you not like freaking out? And I think you said something like, I'm too busy worrying about you guys to like worry about myself, and or I'm too busy like doing work to worry, which I think, some people could say it could be quite like
therapeutic, maybe.
Therapeutic, but also like it could be quite negative, where you're doing too much work and you're not thinking about yourself. But I think to a degree though, like if it does work, like, you know what I mean? Like,
do you know what? For me, being busy, if I've got too much time on my hands, like I have over the past however many months when I've been semi-retired, and realised that it's just not for me, I can't have too much time on my hands, because that's when I can let things get into my head. So always...
Maybe I spend too much time doing nothing.
Well,
what you're saying is you need to do more.
No, I just think it's what works.
Yeah, it works for you.
For me, it doesn't work for everybody, but it's finding what works
I'm a bit more of a slow Loris. I need to flow and meander and let things sit and ruminate.
Which drives me mad at times, but there you go. It works for you. A million miles an hour and you're 5 miles an hour.
It'll get done.
I know.
It'll be fine.
But we love you for it.
The dishes will get washed.
Yeah, in your time, not my time. My time is now. But that's how you are, and that's what works for you. And you know what? And I'm proud of what you've done. I am proud of you for doing that WoeMan thing, because you've built a community for people who've struggled, who still struggle with different things, but all of you are there for each other, and that is just an unbelievable community that where you've brought people together. They formed friendship groups. You go and you do the activities, different things that other people, all of you like to do, and it's just unbelievable. So look out for WoeMan, everybody.
What an endorsement.
But it is.
Yeah,
but it's not just sat talking, woe is me. You're getting out, you're being active.
We're all having fun, we're being proactive, we're having a nice time, and there's no onus on let's sit down in a circle and we'll talk about this specific topic. It's like, I don't want it to be like that. There's places that do that, and it's great to have that, but this is more just like
it's bringing the fun to it, isn't it?
Bringing the fun to it, and just normalising the fact that at any point, if you want to talk about your mental health, you can. Like, it doesn't have to be in a specific setting. It can be at any point, like this. Let's go to the Rising Sun and talk about suicide. How lovely.
I know.
What a lovely way to spend a Saturday morning.
A cheery topic, cheery topic, but a necessary topic to speak about. So now for the rest of the day, it's football, who's being promoted, who's going to finish top 5, hopefully.
We are so different. I know. Different.
We are very different, but there you go.
Right, thank you. Love you.
Love you. Mwah.
She keeps me alive. And that's not even a joke.
Oh, my bum's numb. I know, it's not even a joke, is it?